And welcome into Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. Hey, welcome into everybody. And listen, we've been doing this now for a little bit over a month. We appreciate all of you who have been listening to the show for the last 20 plus years and now have found us here on YouTube and the podcast app. Anywhere you get your podcast, that's where you find Hockey Sense with me, Andy Strickland, brought to you by First Community. Fun show for you once again today. We just dropped Jimmy Howard on the Cam and Strick podcast this past Tuesday. Of course, we drop a new episode every Tuesday, me and Cam Jansen. And we had Jimmy Howard on. We talked a lot of youth hockey with Jimmy Howard, the former longtime Detroit Red Wings goaltender. And he was the coach of the Brick team out of Detroit that just won the Brick tournament, which is arguably the biggest youth hockey tournament going in the world right now. You know, for years, the Pee Wee Quebec tournament always held that title and always had that distinction of being the most popular youth hockey tournament in the world. They probably still are. I mean, people bring up the Pee Wee Quebec. I'm sure more people know about Pee Wee Quebec versus the Brick. But the Brick is getting more and more popular by the year, and their social media is blowing up. And now with, everything, with Instagram and all that, it can help you gain popularity in a very short time, which obviously the Pee Wee Quebec tournament's been going on for dozens and dozens and dozens of years. Gretzky played in it. I mean, you think about how many legends have played in the Pee Wee Quebec. We'll be saying about that about the Brick tournament years from now. We already are. I mean, people are putting highlights up of Steven Stamkos sniping in the Brick tournament, Pietrangelo, Connor Bedard, Austin Matthews, all these guys who played in the Brick tournament. And so Jimmy Howard was coaching the Detroit team. He coaches Little Caesars out of Detroit. So I wanted to bring Rod Braceful on from USA Hockey. He's the director of the National Team Development Program. We just got to get into it. They just had the summer showcase. We talked about that last week with, who kind of stood out from a Blues standpoint. They had 3 defensemen participating for Team USA, a couple of Swedes, Lindstein, who is a hell of a defenseman, Teo. He's going to be a hell of a player for a long time. And, he had a good showing once again. The Blues had 3 first-round picks last year, a couple of Swedes. And, people ask all the time, when are these guys going to get here? When are they going to play in the NHL? When are they going to be in a Blues uniform? But it sounds like both those guys are heading back to Sweden for this year, for another year of professional hockey over in Sweden. So it's going to be a little while before we see the 2 Swedes get into a Blues uniform. And who knows, maybe both guys are going to have to play in the American League before they find their way to the National Hockey League. But Theo Lindstein, he was the third of the 3 first-round picks last year. Swedish defenseman, had a real good World Junior, and people obviously paying attention to him. Otto Stenberg's the other, and Stenberg obviously has a lot of incredible upside for him as well. More of a two-way center. He can certainly contribute offensively, make plays. He's shown that he can do that all the time, but I think he's pretty responsible both ends of the ice. Like, I don't look at him as a bona fide first-line center. He could certainly develop into being that guy, but he's more of like a second, third-line guy who can, help you win the matchup game, contribute offensively, be a power play guy, but also maybe contribute on the other end of special teams with the PK and whatnot. And, of course, you had Dalibor Dvorsky. So, all these guys, who are coming into the Blues organization. But, USA Hockey just hosted the summer showcase, the World Junior Summer Showcase a week or 2 ago. And, Canada was there, obviously. You had, Sweden, Finland. It's always a good time to watch some of these kids play as they try to make their mark in an effort to make the World Junior Tournament, which has become very commercialized, very successful, a lot of fun. My favorite event to watch on the calendar year, hands down, is the World Junior Championships, and it has been for a long time. The National Team Development Program has become such an institution among American hockey, and you just look at the legends who have played there, from Matthew Tkachuk to Austin Matthews to Patrick Kane. I mean, you just go on and on and on and on. If you are a relevant American superstar, there is a overwhelming good chance that you came up in the USA system and played with the National Team Development Program. So how does it work? How do they find their players? When do they start scouting for the players? So they have a U17 team and a U18 team. This year, the U17s are the 2008 birth year. when do they start looking at the 2008s? Is it last year? Is it 2 years ago? Is it 3 years ago? I mean, is the U.S. program paying attention to what we're seeing from 10-year-olds now at the Brick? Do they pay attention to the Pee Wee Quebec tournament, or is it not even on their radar? We'll ask all those questions, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. Rod Braceful, who I said was he's the director of the National Team Development Program, used to be the assistant director, then he left and went to work for the Chicago Blackhawks. He's a big name in the hockey world right now, certainly a big name in American hockey, and I'm looking forward to this conversation coming up, so stay tuned for that with Rod Braceful. Here on the Hockey Sense with Andy Strickland program, which drops every Friday. Don't confuse it with the Cam and Strick podcast, which drops every Tuesday. So we have this every Friday, Cam and Strick every Tuesday. And when we get into hockey season, obviously we'll have lots to talk about as we get into the NHL season and training camp, and we'll look at the competition with the Blues. I think there's more competition internally in training camp this year than what we've seen in the last couple of years. I mean, you look at the forward group right now, and you can get through 13, 14 forwards and not even talk about a guy like Zach Bolduc, a former first-round pick who finished the season here last year, who's going to make a real significant push. I hope he makes the team. I mean, you got to start getting some of these young guys here. I think he showed a positive impression last year, and he's got a good opportunity to take another step here in what would be, and in my opinion, what probably should be, and what probably will be, his first full season as a NHL player. Although I guess there's been some inconsistency with a guy like Bolduc. Maybe you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, 2 years ago, they sent him back to training camp, remember? Like, the first wave of cuts, he was out of here. And then didn't go down to the Quebec League and pout, played for Patrick Waugh, ended up winning a Memorial Cup. Great comeback story, even though he was a first-round pick. I don't want to call it a comeback story, but you know what I'm saying. I'm sure some people were writing him off, and he did what he had to do, and he did what he had to do last year, learning the professional game down in Springfield and then finding his way up here to the NHL late in the season and having some real, good games and playing some good hockey for the Blues. But Dalibor Dvorsky obviously is a guy that everyone's paying attention to. Is he going to be able to crack the roster? Will he make the team? I think they're going to give him every opportunity to make the team. Doesn't mean he will, but they're going to play him with good players. He's going to play a number of preseason games. So he's going to get a look. And, I can't sit here and predict what he's going to do with that look. But would it surprise me if he knocked somebody off and made the team? No. Would it surprise me if he went down and played 20 games and then came up here to the NHL? No, not at all. But you want to start getting these guys here and staggering them into the NHL. You don't want to have all these guys arriving at the same time. You got Snuggerud coming at the end of this season coming up. Once his season is over with Minnesota, he'll sign with the Blues, and he'll be here at the end of the year. Doesn't guarantee that he'll be here next year. Sometimes to get these guys signed, that's what you do. You say, hey, we'll sign you, and then you come and play the rest of the season in the NHL, finish up the season here in the NHL. Gets him to sign. They get a taste of the NHL. They learn their teammates. They learn the facilities. They get to know the trainers, all of that. There's a real value and benefit to being able to do that as a young player before they try to become a full-time NHLer the following season. So what kind of impression Snuggerud makes at the end of next season and what kind of training camp he has the following year will dictate how quickly we see him in a Blues uniform as a full-time NHLer. But he already has the best one-timer in the organization as it sits right now. I've said several times he will eventually become David Perron's replacement as that power play specialist, that one-time threat from the top of the left circle on the power play. I think he can score 5-on-5, and there's areas of his game he's going to want to improve on as well. But again, a ton of upside, and the organization's very excited about Jimmy Snuggerud. Right now, you got the Hlinka Gretzky tournament going on right now, and USA is playing Canada later on today. So at the time that we're recording this, I don't have any update of how that game will go. Hopefully USA has a good showing in that game. Canada's got that Gavin McKenna I think we talked about him with Jake Neighbors a few weeks ago. If you didn't listen to Jake Neighbors, you probably should. He was on the show here a couple of weeks ago. You can find that on the YouTube channel and anywhere you get your podcasts. But he's skating with a group of NHLers up in Calgary, and Gavin McKenna is one of the kids that's skating. So Canada brings their big dogs and all their top prospects to the Hlinka Gretzky tournament. Kind of started as a European tournament. Canada got involved, put Gretzky's name on it, and now it's the Hlinka Gretzky tournament. And this year it happens to be in Edmonton, which is also where the Brick tournament is played every year. So Canada plays USA later today. This is not the top team for the Americans. It's an under-18 tournament. And, you know, the way it breaks down, and the easiest way to explain it, they have the U18 World Championships. Typically, the Americans send their best players to that tournament. Canada doesn't. A lot of Canada's top players are still playing in the Canadian Hockey League playoffs at that time. So they don't send their best players to the U18s. USA has dominated that tournament for years. They've won a lot of gold medals. But again, Canada hasn't had their top roster. This is different. This is Canada's top roster. And this is not the Americans' top roster. So it's kind of the secondary group of players, maybe the next 20, if you will. You know, if the U18s send their top 20, this is the next 20. So a bunch of future NHLers, some big-time studs, some really, really talented players, and some future stars in the NHL still play in this tournament too. So don't sleep on the next 20. I'm looking forward to watching this game later on today. I've been watching so much American stuff, man. Not to get off topic, but I've gotten so into the Olympics and everything else that's happening. That USA basketball game against Serbia is one of the best sporting events I've ever watched in my life, man. I was going crazy. I just get into sports when they're representing their country. There's just something different about it. I'm not the biggest NBA fan. I like the NBA. I don't love the NBA. I think this Olympic tournament may lead me to becoming a big NBA fan once again. Kind of gives you a connection with certain players that maybe you don't typically follow. And our schedule is so busy during the hockey season that, you know, I don't have time to sit around and watch NBA games when I'm watching as much hockey as I do. So, but that performance by Steph Curry, that'll always go down as the Steph Curry game. Durant was huge in the fourth quarter. LeBron James was unbelievable. Joel Embiid was incredible. I didn't even know he was American until like a few weeks ago. They said he could have played for like 3 different countries. Is that how it works in the Olympics? Like you have like options to play with like 10 different. He can play with 3 different countries. I wish I had that option to just go, hey, just choose your country and maybe you can find your way to the Olympics in a specific sport. But I'm glad he's on Team USA. Joel Embiid had a hell of a game, although he couldn't rebound the basketball on the defensive end in that fourth quarter. There were way too many putbacks and second and third chance opportunities for Serbia. And Embiid was at the scene of the crime on a couple of those occasions. But Durant was great. Booker hit a big basket. He was good defensively. I mentioned Curry. They kind of shortened the bench a little bit. They had some guys come in for a very short period of time just to give some guys a rest late in the third quarter. I think they were down by like 13 points or something like that with 7.5, something to go in the fourth quarter. So one of the greatest comebacks we've seen. Carmelo Anthony sitting courtside. You had all these celebrities there, man. It was cool. So now they got to play France in the gold medal game. So I'm looking forward to that one. France is going to have the home court advantage. And then you've got the American girls playing in the gold medal soccer game, I believe, against Brazil. That's coming up this weekend, too. So maybe we'll follow up with an update coming up next week on how all these games went. But good luck to Team USA. So it's kind of an American theme on this edition of Hockey Sense because we've got Rod Braceful coming up here in just a couple of minutes. As always, Hockey Sense is brought to you by First Community, and we love our friends over at First Community. They have so many things going on at First Community right now. Listen, open up a new bank account. They've always got good rates. you're looking for, to buy your first home, to buy a car, all of that type of stuff if you're looking for loans. But I just love the connection they have to the local hockey community here in St. Louis through that Little Blues program. It's where my son started. It's where a lot of kids started playing hockey through Little Blues. And you just get, 6, 7 ice time, something like that, good coaching, but all the equipment comes with it. It's a very small price. And I always say to parents, man, do this first before you decide you want to commit thousands and thousands of dollars to the sport. Find out if they like it. And if they love it, then you continue. My suggestion is to do the Little Blues program for at least a couple of sessions. You don't have to just do it once. Do it twice. Take advantage of the program. It's an incredible program. They do a ton of stuff with youth hockey here in St. Louis, and they support the Blues too. And they put their name behind the Blues Hall of Fame, which I am a Blues Hall of Fame voter. I would expect the announcement of who's going to go in the class of 2025. Will it be 25 or 24? I think it's 25 because I want to say the event takes place after the change of the calendar year. And I've been to the first two, obviously. It's an incredible event. It's always fun. And this year will be no different. I don't want to reveal my selections for this year's class, but First Community is the title sponsor of the St. Louis Blues Hall of Fame. And it's an honor to be able to vote each and every year. But to be affiliated with First Community has been a lot of fun. I mean, again, they are having a Blues ball hockey event that they're putting their name on too. But this Little Blues program is top notch, so check that out. Four Hands Brewing Company, big announcement. The Cam and Strick podcast, Mango Lemonade Hard Seltzer from Four Hands is coming back once again this hockey season. Typically it's supposed to be a seasonal drink, where it's available anywhere you get your Four Hands products. Of course, they've got all the tasting rooms now, downtown St. Louis, 1220 South 8th Street. They have the, sorry about that. Cam's not here to yell at me. They have the location out there in Chesterfield, the new location in Kirkwood. So you'll be able to find the Mango Lemonade Hard Seltzer at any of those locations, but also wherever you get your Mango or your Four Hands Brewing Company products. So it is coming back. It's been one of their best sellers, man. We love it. It's my favorite hard seltzer. I truly believe it's the best seltzer on the market. And you can say I'm biased, and I probably am, but I've tried all of them. I don't like the sugary drinks. I don't like the ones that taste like sugar, that give you a stomach ache and make you feel like crap the next day. I don't like those ones. You don't find this with the Mango Lemonade Cam and Strick podcast hard seltzer, which has less than 1 gram of sugar. Less than 100 calories. It's good, man. So check that out. Four Hands Brewing Company. Mango Lemonade. Back on the shelves September 24th. We'll have some events coming up with Cam and I that hopefully you guys will find out about and come hang out with us when we do some promotions coming up next month in September. And probably throughout the fall as well. 314 Sports Cards. Check this out, man. Devin Sant, who joins us each and every week, for the most part. He's unavailable this week. But my son goes there yesterday. He wanted to buy some cards for a buddy of his who is having a birthday party tonight. One of his teammates on his hockey team is having a hockey party, wanted to go get him some cards. My kid goes to pull a card out, and he gets a Gordie Howe. He gets a Gordie Howe card. So 314 Sports Cards, man, they are the best in the business. When it comes to getting individual cards, you can get the packs, you can get the boxes. They got an event coming up with Trent Frederick from the Boston Bruins. So be sure to check out their website, their Instagram page, all of that. They're open on Sundays now. And see when Trent Frederick's going to be in there. But take your son or daughter, man. They got the TVs, the couches, watch sports, hang out. NBA, NFL, MLB, soccer, Pokemon. I mean, Aiden and Maddie, they're telling me about some card they're talking. I don't even know what the hell they're talking about. They got those cards too. What are they called again? UBO. You can get those too probably. Caitlin Clark cards are going for $50,000. Are you kidding me? But somebody called me the other day. They said their kid has gotten so into cards that they're going to start their own unboxing show on YouTube. And I'm going to be a part of that. I'm looking forward to it. And certainly all the cards will most likely come from 314 Sports Cards. We'll get them involved too. So it's a big industry. So again, check that out. 314 Sports Cards. Get there today. 9640 Olive Boulevard in Olivet. let's step aside for 1 minute, and then when we come back, we'll talk things over with Rod Braceful. That interview will be brought to you by Lordo's Diamonds. We'll do that on the other side. This is Hockey Sense. We're in the Half Coast Studios. Maddie's in the house. Aiden's in the house. And we're talking some USA hockey. Next on Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. Don't go anywhere. Hey, Rod Braceful coming up. We'll talk everything USA hockey. Looking forward to that. Dirt Cheap Fun Fun, your one-stop party shop. Get there and get there today. Dirt Cheap, baby. Man, they've got so many locations. Some of them have drive-thrus. You can get the curbside pickup as well. Never get out of your car. Don't sleep on the paper goods, all the party supplies you have at Dirt Cheap. The paper plates, the decorations, all of that, man. So if you're having back-to-school parties, birthday parties, whatever it is, got Halloween just around the corner. Got a lot of stuff happening. Friday night tailgates just around the corner. The best beer, wine, booze selection, including all the products from Four Hands Brewing Company, can be found at Dirt Cheap Fun Fun, your one-stop party shop. So check that out. Several locations, and we love everything that Dirt Cheap Fun Fun does. They are a local community too, and that's the common theme. All our sponsors here, man, they're all local. So the Wallace family, one of the best families in the region, man. They give so much back to the city of St. Louis. Just like Kevin Lemp does with Four Hands and Devin Sant with 314 Sports Cards and everybody. So, again, Dirt Cheap Fun Fun, your one-stop party shop. So what camp, are you doing the top 68 camp this week? Which camp are you doing right now? Mm-hmm. Or you have your own camp?
You know what? It's a development camp. You know, you think about NHL teams when they draft players, they're good players. You go to development camp. From a player's perspective, obviously they want to showcase themselves, but you're learning new things so you can take with you when you go to your season, how to apply certain things to your game, how to talk to your coaches, how to get better within a team system, but obviously individual as well, because they all have goals. So I came up with the concept with a few people, and I wanted to get these kids in front of pro coaches, college coaches, NTDP coaches, every level that they strive to play at, and hear it from the source. Some parents are telling them the right things. They're hearing it in other places, but it means more, as you know, when it comes from the people that they see on TV, the people that they watch and follow. And at the end of the day, the players are striving to get to those places. So who better to hear it from than from the source themselves? So it's been great. We've had, the last couple of years, we've had a really good group of players, and this year it's the 09s as they're heading into their season. It happens to be the same, year we're going to track this coming season. But, World Junior Summer Showcase was just last week. And before that, I was in Minnesota for Helenka. And I had Derek Lalonde, the head coach of the Red Wings, talk to the parents and players. And Sean Clark, who's the GM of Sioux City Musketeers, he spoke to them as well. But trying to show the American players that there's not one set path to make it, and everybody's on a different timeline, whether it's mentally maturing or physically maturing, but how to be ready once you get the call. And then once you get the call, how do you stay at that level? At
the very beginning, so what's the name of the camp? What's the camp you're doing right now?
It's called the LAD camp. It's called Learn, Apply, Develop. Okay. So I kind of came up with the concept from you get to learn these skills and attributions, but then you have to apply them to your game. We've all been to a hockey camp where you've learned something and it was pretty cool or something that was intriguing, but to apply it to your game and actually be able to develop those habits, it takes time. So they kind of get to learn certain skills and teachings. Then they're put in drills to actually apply those things. So when you get those reps, you can actually develop the habits. But then when you go to the gym every day, the next step is how do you be good at the gym every day, right? You got to get into a routine. And then how do you apply things? Then those become habits. It's the same in hockey. And I think for these kids, they're all talented. They all can do all sorts of things we cannot teach. Mm-hmm. That's where the game has gone, which is cool to see. But there's little things that they need to learn and develop, but they have to be in an environment to learn those things and apply those things. And that's how they develop those habits. And it's tough in youth hockey because they're playing a team sport. It's a team game. And although everybody has individual goals and aspirations, you have to balance that. You have to do it within the coach's discretion and how the coach wants you to play. And there's a lot of stuff track on wins and losses and stuff like that. So sometimes they get lost in translation, but No, just trying to help the kids continue to get better. And like I said, they all have these goals and aspirations, but once you get there, how do you stay there and have success?
Yeah. So how many kids are there, by the way, that are invited?
60. We kind of keep it small.
Okay. So it's interesting. I'm going through it right now. You learn so much. My son is still pretty young, but just being involved with youth hockey here in St. Louis, man, I've seen so many kids go through it. A lot of our kids have been to your camp too. So,
Yeah.
It's
Alex Brooks I've worked with when I worked with the Blackhawks, and he came up and his kid got to go through it. And, I think, and you could talk to him about it. I think what he liked is there's all these events that you just come, you play 4 games and you go home. You're not really sure if you did well or not. You get a couple points and you play with some good players, but you don't really know. There's no feedback. There's no takeaway. I think the biggest thing for me is I wanted kids to have takeaway and have things that they can learn and then apply it to themselves and then develop those habits. It's kind of how he came up with the name. And that way that, especially too, with it being this late in the summer, they're going to be able to use those things as they go into their season.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
Listen, there's so much pressure on kids nowadays and parents too, to feel like they've got to do everything and be involved with everything. We just had Jimmy Howard on our podcast actually last week. He was coaching the brick team and it's like for that 2-week period, we treat these kids like they're NHLers, man. I mean, it's all over social media. There's kids getting endorsement deals. You see them on social media. But from your perspective, how much are you paying attention to kids that young? I mean, it used to be the Pee Wee Quebec tournament too was kind of the biggest youth hockey tournament in the world. Probably still is. The brick obviously is getting a lot of attention, but are those kids even on the radar yet for USA Hockey at that age? Or do you truly just pump the brakes and wait till they get a little bit older?
You got to wait till they're older. The only reason I knew about the brick this year is because actually Chad Kalarick, who's one of our coaches here, he's assistant coach of our U18 team with Greg Moore and Ryan Hayes.
Yeah.
His son was on that team, so he actually helped out Jimmy. But that's the only reason why I knew about the brick. Obviously, I know about the brick tournament, but that's the only reason why I knew about the teams and how they did this year because of Chad's son. But honestly, for me, kids need to have fun in the sport. And I think the biggest letdown and the biggest disappointment, you mentioned about the pressure, the noise, and you look at some of the things that the parents go through and what they think that they're supposed to be going through at such an early age. That's where the letdown happens, right? I am fortunate enough that this game has been really good to me, but all I did was have fun within the game. There was never any pressure. There was never any moment that, I didn't do this. I was a failure. And I think at the young age, these kids should just be having fun. They should be able to play sports and get better. And then from there, as you get older, you make the decision as a player, and the parents should support their kids and what they want to do. That's when they take the, all-in approach. But I don't think you can really do that till you're about 14, 15, 16 years old. So we don't look at the brick. We don't look at Pee Wee Quebec. Actually, how it works with us is the 15 camp, the Select 15 player development camp in Buffalo. That's the national camp. It's referred to as Select 15s. That's the first time that all the 2009s were brought together by USA Hockey. And that was this past July. So before that, our assistant director, who's no longer here, David Nyes, he took a job in Miami, Ohio. He did a great job. He went around and he watched about 70% of 2009s last year, and he helped me and assisted me. Right now, the CCM 68 is going on in Chicago. We hired a guy, Andrew Whiteside, who's been a NHL scout for Montreal Canadiens. He'll be going into that weekend to watch, but that's the first time he's noticed the 2010s.
Okay.
Right. And then I'm just starting with the 09s, but that's it's always changing. It's always fluid. I always say there's 2 types of players getting past and players passing players. So it's always changing. You can't start too young because the kids just don't know yet. And you don't want to be in a situation where, hey, they're doing all these things and they're not having fun with the game. You got to have fun with the game. And then that's when I think you make the choice. You know what? I really want to take this seriously and focus on this one sport. Otherwise, it's just too tough.
Well, it's tough to do more than one sport now, too, at the highest level. You know what I mean? I mean, there's so much year-round commitment. You talk about you're having a camp right now. It's in August. You just had the summer showcase for the older kids, obviously. You got the Hlinka Gretzky going on. You had the selection camps. I mean, there's hardly any time off nowadays. Like, what do you tell these kids? Like, how much time off should you give yourself, or is it a personal decision, Rod? I look at it as a personal decision. You know your body and you know what you can deal with, right? But is it something that you encourage these kids to do, to take time off?
100%. So I think it's twofold. I think the old days where you and I were younger, and you're a little bit older than me, where we were able to play multiple sports, sports have turned into a little bit of an industry where if you want to play baseball, well, you're missing baseball for hockey, and the baseball coach is wondering, do you want to be a baseball player or a hockey player? Mm-hmm. You're missing football for hockey, and the football coach wants to know, do you want to be a football player or a hockey player?
Yeah.
So no matter the sport, I think youth sports in general now have kind of turned into a little bit of an industry where you're one sport focused. But I tell families and I tell players, be an athlete. Just because you're not on an AAU team in basketball and you're traveling every weekend like you do with hockey doesn't mean you can't be an athlete. Get out in the playground and play with your buddies. Go play golf, which is mentally tough. You have to play. Go play basketball with your buddies. Go out with a group of buddies and go play, baseball. You don't have to be on an AAU team or a travel team and do it the same way as you do in hockey. And I understand that there's a lot of financial and time commitment to play multiple sports. But I tell people, you got to be an athlete. You're never going to get passed up on an opportunity because you're too athletic, right? And I think the thing that I learned in youth sports when I was younger, I learned more about, from a coaching standpoint, in baseball that reflected in the hockey than I did within hockey. There was a piece when I was younger, as a younger player, that the game kind of came easy to me, and I was a bigger kid for my size at a young age, that I didn't really get, I wouldn't say challenged, but I didn't have adversity in that moment. I played baseball. I loved baseball. I sucked. So in baseball, I learned how to be a good teammate. I learned how to, you're not going to play every inning. You're going to come in and out. But you have to be a good teammate, and you have to work harder. And if there's things that you want to strive for, well, you got to put in the work. I took that with me to hockey, and I didn't learn that in hockey. I learned it in another sport because I was in a different environment and different position. But I tell families, though, from the athleticism standpoint, go be an athlete. Get outside. And I understand technology has improved, and there's lots of video games and, these cell phones here, like they run our world. And I'm on my phone all the time as well. But I also use it to your advantage. YouTube is free, right? So you can be on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and all those things. But sometimes instead of looking at the funny videos and whatnot, look at the training stuff you can do. You may not have a gym in your home, but you can go on YouTube and you can learn at-home workouts. You can learn at-home stick handling, stick shooting. There's ways and opportunities to get things done, and we have it at our fingertips. But you just have to make sure you challenge that inner drive within yourself. And you definitely have to take time off. I mean, realistically, you want to miss the game. You want to have that urge and desire to, when you come back, that you're so pumped for the season. So you need to take time off. You need to have that urge and desire to get in game mode, as they say. Otherwise, if you play 24/7 and that's all you do, sometimes it gets conflicted a little bit of what's an important game and what's not, because you've done it. This is just all you do.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And listen, my son did some of the summer tournaments this past year. It was fun. Like he walked into an environment, didn't know any of the kids. We didn't know any of the parents, like he created friendships too, and sometimes it's part of the experience. But it's interesting, like they're going through tryouts right now. And, some parents, listen, they give their kid a break, but they come back in time to kind of get themselves back up to speed before tryouts. I mean, some kids are gone all summer and they show up the day before tryouts, and then they wonder, hey, how come I didn't make the, it's like there's a balance there, right? You got to still make sure you're preparing properly, right?
And that's where I think, the parents know their kids, and the parents have to be the adults in the situation. And we can't always be our kids' best buddy. Sometimes you're going to have those tough conversations and know when to hit the halt button and not do everything. Pick or choose. You don't need to do everything. It's good to get your kid a different experience. Being in an environment to play against other players that you may not typically play with. Sometimes if you've only played in St. Louis and stayed on the Blues team, maybe you have a core that sticks together, but you play the same teams year after year. You get to be on a team with someone else. You get to have a different coach and a different voice. You get to play with other players. So there's definitely some benefits to that too. But it doesn't mean you need to do it every weekend. And I think the biggest thing is picking and choosing. If you play 50 games throughout the year, you don't need to chase another 25 in the spring, summer.
Yeah.
We can all agree that the most important time for, the kids' seasons, no matter or the players' seasons, is in season, not out of season. So the 25 games out of the season that you think are so important, they really aren't.
So listen,
they really are.
So you're in charge of the National Team Development Program, which, I mean, you just look at any NHL roster, any American superstar that's come through the game over the course of the last 40 years or whatever. How many every year? 30 plus years that the National Team Development Program has been around, whatever it is, man. Tell me. Yeah. But they probably have come through it. And I love watching the World Junior Tournament. And there's so much that we've had so many St. Louis kids that have come through the National Team Development Program too. I haven't really hardly heard anyone that had a negative experience. They're all better off after going through it. But how did you get involved, and what has this meant for your career? I know you spent some time in the NHL as well doing some scouting, but what has this meant for your career just in terms of being around these elite athletes? Me
growing up as a player, I was never at the level to have the opportunity to play at the NTDP. I knew players in my birth year that had the opportunity to play, guys that I played against growing up, and followed their careers. And you know what? Like, hockey's been good to me. I'm a firm believer, if you're good to the game, it's good back to you. I was working in hockey. I was coaching in Detroit, AAA. I was scouting in the USHL while coaching. And after doing that for a couple of years, I switched organizations. I worked for Sioux Falls for 3 years while coaching for CompuWare and Little Caesars. And then I went over to work in Muskegon for a year before coming to the U.S. program. So I worked 3 years. My first year as the assistant director, my first term. And then I went to the Blackhawks for 2 years. And then I came back last year as the director. Like this time last year, I came back at the end of July. And it's been awesome. And honestly, I think for my job, there's only going to be a fortunate enough of 23, 24 players to make our U17 the following year. But we want to make sure we educate those 100 players, because there's 100 player and families that are really good players, and it's going to happen at different rates for all of them. And I look at the World Junior Summer Showcase as a prime example. When you get to that, you want all the best players at 18, 19 years old. And we want to take the best group into that tournament to put our best foot forward. The NTDP is an incredible opportunity, but I think the cool piece coming back, I've been able to be involved with the Five Nations tournament as well as the Lincoln tournament, and that's a group of players that are outside of our program.
Yeah.
So I truly enjoy that. You know what? There's a group of good players. We picked 23 of them this past year with the 08s, and there's obviously more than 23 good players. There's different reasons why we picked, we want the best players, but it's also the best fit. And those other groups of players, they still get an opportunity to play international. So out of the Select 16 Festival, they selected a team to go to the Five Nations tournament. And then out of the Select 17 Festival, they selected 36 players to go to the Halinka camp. And I had the good fortune of being involved in that. So we're able to track these players all the way up. And, the Halinka, U.S. plays Canada tonight at 9:30 or tomorrow. And, it's tonight, sorry. It's a big game. It's a big game. And it's good for USA that we have 40 plus players being able to have international experience, being able to represent their country. And I think that when you look at the development model across the board, that's really put us over the edge compared to some of the other countries. Just because of some of the other countries, they have their 20 to 25 players in that birth year, and they just stick with it, And when you get to the World Juniors, which is the big one, we want to be the best. And then from there, we want to win a men's world championships. We want to win the Olympics. Obviously, the Four Nations Cup is a new one that's coming between Sweden, Finland, us, and Czech. So excited about that. But I think the USA Hockey's done a really good job, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, and there's always late bloomers too, man. I mean, and the Blues just took that Colin Ralph kid who you can't help but
Oh,
notice
yeah.
because he's a monster on the ice, man.
Yeah.
And he was playing midget AAA last year, with Shattuck. It's like it's an amazing story, and obviously with him being drafted, the next 2 years will be huge for him as he goes to college. Like, I'm curious to see where he's at in 2 years from now. You know what I mean? After playing college hockey for a couple of years, so.
And it's great because I've been able to track him without even like tracking him. If
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. I've seen Shattuck play, and Colin Ralph was a bigger kid who was a little bit awkward and lanky, and then he starts growing into his body and he starts getting physically stronger, and he's still taking those steps. And I think college hockey will be a good push for him. And then all of a sudden, at his rate, he didn't play on the Holinker Five Nations team, but that's okay because now, he's making a push to try to be in the World Junior team. Noah Powell is another example. He's a kid from Chicago. He played in Dubuque the past 2 years. He went from, 8 goals to 40, in his second year playing in Dubuque. And it's just the development happens in so many different ways for each player. Each player has their own path, but it's great for us in USA Hockey that we can be involved in more facets than just obviously the NTDP to help these players along.
Yeah. I was just talking to Zach Bogosian the other day, man. He was a third overall pick, but like playing in a small town in New York, no one really knew who he was, and then all of a sudden goes to the OHL and never really represented USA hockey ever, I think, until he played in the men's world championships, which is one of his first years playing professionally. So that was so I love those stories as much as I love the Patrick Kane stories or the phenom stories of some of these kids that or you hear about from the time that they're 13, 14, 15 years old.
Yeah, I mean, Johnny Gaudreau, he leads the men's worlds in scoring for U.S. Jason Robertson's having a great career, start of a career, right? He's still young in Dallas.
Second round pick, right?
Yeah, 100%. Everybody has a different path. And it's good for us at USA Hockey to have players play in different avenues and different areas. So, we just want to continue to keep better and keep raising the bar.
Is any other federation doing what you guys are doing? Like, and who were the brains behind it to say, hey, this is what we're going to do with USA Hockey in an effort to, elevate, the sport here in our country?
Yeah, years ago, Jeff Jackson, who's, finishing his last year at Notre Dame. Bob Mancini was a part of that. Scott Monahan, who's still here at the NTDP. Ken Martell, who's still with USA Hockey. Lou Vero, they all kind of got together and started the NTDP. And I think the first few years, it was a little bit of a pilot program from the sense of not a lot of people knew about it. So they would go out east and they would see a kid in Boston and they would talk to a family and they would invite them to come to the program tryout and then try to get them to play in the program. But because it was new, it was a little bit of the fear of the unknown. So even like, Ryan Whitney didn't come and play the program right away because he didn't really know about it. And then he came and played for year 2. But I think that first couple years, it was a little bit of a startup. And then I think the 84s is when they won their first gold medal. Greg Moore, who was our U18 coach, he was on that team. They won a U18 Worlds and they won a World Juniors, the 84 birth year. Ryan Kessler, Zach Parisi played on that Worlds team and World Junior team, just to name a few. But I think that's when they really kind of set the tone and showed that, wow, this program thing's a real big deal. And the new things that they're doing of cutting edge and really making a push to make all the players better, that's where you saw the jump. And then from there, they've started to have success. But it's good for the game. I think for the younger kids, it's good for them to start striving and start having a focus point. It's something they can attain. Obviously, a lot of these kids want to play college hockey, but as a 8th grader and a 9th grader, you're so far away from college, even though you're wondering who's at your game and who's watching, you're still only going to go into the sophomore year of high school. So I think as freshmen and sophomores to strive to make the NTDP, to know what you're trying to do as a junior and senior, it kind of gets the players to focus on development, focus on getting better, and kind of starts getting them serious as athletes, student athletes at that, to start putting things in order and prioritizing so they can make that jump.
All right, a few more things for you, Rod. And listen, I appreciate your time, and it's
100%.
great to have you on. But like Canada, it may be hard for them to create a national team program, with the CHL and all that. I don't know. You guys play in the USHL, so you have that great relationship with the USHL. So explain that. Do you play a full USHL schedule? Then obviously you're playing in the international tournaments in the spring and whatnot, and you got the World Juniors, and not every kid obviously is playing in the World Juniors. There's a selection process for that you talked about earlier. But again, do you feel like other countries have tried to copy what you guys are doing?
I don't think they have. I do think that they're historically doing something a little bit different of what they've always been doing. When you talk about the USHL, we participate and we're a proud partner in the league. I think it's one of the best junior leagues in the world. The proof's in the pudding. If you look at the last 5 NHL drafts and see how many players have been selected from the USHL, I think it really speaks volumes. This past draft, we had more players drafted out of the USHL than the OHL, WHL, Quebec Major Junior League combined. And those are, if you look at how many teams are in all those leagues across Canada, I don't think it's any comparison. I think the USHL is the best league in the world. And I think we're happy to be partners in that league because we're able to participate in a blended schedule. So our U18s, they'll play about 20 to 25 games. And the U17s will play the remaining of those games in the league. So when you look at the USHL standings, we're 2 teams, but we're in the 1 when it comes to the standings because both teams play in the league. The other games the U18s will play are 3 international events as well as colleges. And the 17s will play some North American League games. They'll play a Minnesota Elite League game or 2. They'll go to that showcase. And then they'll play primarily in the USHL. Mm-hmm. And then if we make the playoffs, the 17s, they actually participate in the playoffs while the 18s are at U18 Worlds. Right. U18 World Championships is kind of the culmination of our 2 years here.
Mm-hmm. What about kids having the choice after the program to go to the CHL versus college? Do you get involved with that?
Yeah, I think that every kid, like we talked about, every kid has a different path. When they're younger, I think it's the same. There's certain opportunities that kids have. Kids are able to be drafted out of our program and they actually can play in the American League. If you're drafted out of the NTDP, so you could sign and play in the American League, unlike the CHL, that's in the collective bargaining agreement. I think that we've had players in the past who have had success here for 2 years, like a Patrick Kane, and they've gone to Major Junior for 1 season for their draft year. Matthew Tkachuk has done that as well. And then you've had Jack Eichel, who's played 2 years here and still gone to BU and get drafted out of college. I think every path is different for every player. And I think the choice is, up to the player and up to the family. You're putting yourself in a situation that what you think will be best for you and you and your family. And I think that there's times that they ask us questions and they lean on us, but they're doing things to make sure that they continue to take those steps to the foundation that they've started after the 2 years here. All
right, 2 more things for you. For those who aren't familiar, explain what's going on here for the 2 years. Kids are coming from all over the country. They're living with billet families. I don't know what you're feeding these kids, Rod. I see a Shane Van Sage come back to St. Louis. I'm like, damn, he's twice the size. Same thing with Luke Cunnin back in the day and Trent Frederick and something. They just get, Clayton Keller was still, he was still the same, but still doing his thing, man. He's unbelievable. But now he's jacked, and the Tkachuks and everybody who came back, you can just tell the work that they're putting in. It's got to be hard, man. It can't be easy. It's probably not for everybody. But describe what you're doing with these kids over the course of the 2 years that involves not just the practices and the games and the tournaments that we see.
Yeah, I think it's environment, it's culture, right? We create an environment. We teach players how to fail. We teach them how to handle adversity, but we're also there to pick them up. And we almost give them a little bit of a safety net from a standpoint of when they fail, we teach them why, and we teach them how they get out of it. And after 2 years, you have all the best players competing against each other every single day. So the practices are intense, and you have kids from all over the country all striving because they're all the same age. They're all striving. They've all made the same sacrifice. They've given up a sacrifice to be a normal high school student. They've given up the sacrifice to be a normal hockey player. and they push each other, and that's kind of the melting pot. And you know what? There's a month where these guys are good, and then these guys take off. And these guys have a thought of, wow, like, what are we doing wrong? When they're not. They're still really good, but now they push, and now they're pushing to be on the same level. And I think that it's the environment, it's the culture. You get everybody on the same page to push each other, to learn, to be a part of something that they know it's going to benefit them for life, not just on the ice, but off the ice. We're trying to teach these young men how to become men, and we're teaching them life skills on and off the ice that they're going to have success for the rest of their lives. If you're fortunate enough to play in the NHL, great. If not, and you play, at the NTDP, you play 4 years of college and a little pro, and you go start your own dentist practice and you're successful that way, great. I think that for us here, it's a great opportunity to build young men on and off the ice. And we've had, I call them all-stars, not just NHL all-stars. We've had all-stars in life, on and off the ice. And that's the biggest piece. We create an environment and a culture here to help these kids on and off the ice for them to be successful for life.
You can make a lot of money as a dentist, man. If you got all hockey clients, especially, you can.
Jimmy Frazier's in '87. He's my birth year, and he's from Detroit. He played at the NTDP. He won a U18. He was a captain here at the program, and one of his fondest memories is playing for Team USA. He went to Harvard for 4 years. He played in the East Coast League and the American League a little bit for 1 year, went to dental school, has his own practice. Like, he still reflects back on some of his best hockey memories, but he's just doing really well.
Yeah.
He's doing really well.
I love hearing that. So
Nathan Gerby was on that same team, and he was here today talking to the kids. He played in the NHL, obviously. He's working for player development right now for Nashville Predators. But no, it's great to have both.
Nathan Gerby is the head coach of the International Stars, first and foremost, okay? And they keep kicking our butt, though, Rod. We got to figure out a way to close the gap, although the games have been close, and he runs a great program. We do a similar thing here, and we see them an awful lot. So,
he's got 3 kids, and they're running around the rink, terrorizing each other. And I joke with him because that's how he was when he was that age.
That's funny.
But he actually just came in and talked to the kids he talked to both groups just about dealing with adversity and cutting out the noise and just striving to be better every day.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, we got a couple. Neil Komodowski, I think he's got the all-time penalty minutes. So no one's breaking that anytime soon, just so you know.
I talk to Neil all the time. Obviously, he works for Vancouver. His son, George. I think that would never be broken. When they first were playing, they were playing OHL teams. They were playing a little bit of everybody.
Yeah.
Now, Neil's a tough customer, and he gets it from his dad.
Oh, yeah.
But no, great family, great dude.
And Connor Dunlop he was one of the first captains of the World Junior, or back when I think he was in the first class with the National Team Development Program, who's coaching our team that my son plays on right now. So there's a lot of connection, man. All these kids have gone, but who, from St. Louis, a lot of kids have found their way there. But last thing for you, give me a couple names who just blew you away, Rod, right off the bat from a scouting standpoint. You knew this kid was headed for greatness from the first time you saw him. Like, we've heard some great stories, guys like Charlie McAvoy, who said, like, I wasn't even invited originally, and then I got a phone call when I'm in math class or English class or whatever, and he got the late invite, ends up becoming one of the best defensemen in the NHL. I don't think Austin Matthews was one of the top 5 players that you originally commit to each and every year. And, he's going to, be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. So, but who's somebody when you saw, you're like, oh my God, this guy is going to be incredible. You just knew right away.
I actually saw, with the 05s, I saw Will Smith and Ryan Leonard play against each other.
Okay.
And Ryan Leonard was living in Western Mass, and he was playing for the Springfield Rifles, and their program wasn't as strong. He's like 2 hours outside of Boston, hour and a half, and he would play on the 16 team and the 18 team.
Okay.
And Will Smith was playing on the 16 team. He's a good player, and he actually got called up and decided to play for the Eagles in the 18 team. So I saw them go head to head. And they were different style of players, but I thought those two, I was like, I can't believe these are the youngest guys in the game. They both are called up playing against each other. Those two in their own rights, like, I thought, okay, these kids are program kids. Like, there's no doubt about it. And then you get to know the families, and then you start talking to the kids, and you start learning the background. Like, Ryan Leonard's family is family of athletes. You know, his dad got drafted by the Knicks. His dad coached basketball, coached at UMass Amherst. That's why they were living in Amherst. Sisters all played college basketball. Like, you know, brother played for Green Bay, played at UMass, signed a free agent contract. Like, it's one of those things where you just know it's in the DNA. You know, Will Smith as well. So seeing those two for sure. But I think, honestly, it's the players that kind of catch your eye. You know they're pretty good, and you keep tracking them. And then, you know what? There's like this middle ground where you're like, okay, they're going to be big time. And I got to say that with the 04s, like Logan Cooley, he was a smaller player at the time. He was kind of growing. He was really skilled and he could skate, but he wasn't as dominant yet. Jimmy Snuggerud, same thing. Snuggerud's a St. Louis Blues pick. Like, I remember watching him, and he's this lanky, awkward kid, and he was just having fun out there. And I remember talking to his dad for the first time, and he's like, yeah, you know, our goalie left Chaska High School, and we got a freshman goalie coming in. We're just going to be competitive. We're going to leave it all out there. They weren't supposed to be anything, and, you know, and he had a great year. But honestly, I take pride in finding those guys, because I call the one percenters. My grandmother, who just watched me play and I wasn't very good, she could have saw Will Smith and Ryan Leonard play and say, oh, those guys are good hockey players. Okay. But it's the Logan Cooleys and the Jimmy Snuggeruds and the guys that keep taking steps that they may not catch your eye right away, but they're doing the little things. They're getting better. You know that they're going to end up become players. Those, honestly, that's what I think the Americans game has evolved to. Yeah. Because it's not just those one percenters. Like, it's those secondary guys that are getting better every day, and they still can go be an NHLer every day. Like, Logan Cooley's an NHLer every day right now. Jimmy Snuggerud had the opportunity with St. Louis to sign, and he's going to play one more year.
But you're right about Jimmy. And as long as you can one-time the puck the way that he can, like, his dad should have known they're always going to have a chance, man. They're always going to have a chance.
Oh, the way him and Jimmy and Cutter Gauthier terrorized the goalies. They absolutely terrorized goalies. So, you know, I would hate to be a goaltender when those guys are shooting the puck.
Yeah. Hey, man, listen, congrats on all your success personally and everything you're doing with the program. It's been a lot of fun to watch it evolve and get to where it is right now. And hopefully we can do this again soon, man. I'll see you at some point down the trail. But thanks for doing this. Always wanted to catch up with you, and we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely. And let me know when you're coming up to Michigan. We'll make sure that you can bring the boys to a game and get them to meet some of the guys and get a locker room tour, the whole nine. So I appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
We'll be there in December, man. I'll be in touch.
Send me the dates. I'll get on it.
You got it, man. Appreciate it, Rod.
Thanks,
man.
Take care.
Take care. That's Rod Braceful, man. Great conversation. Hope you enjoyed that. Because I always enjoy talking to different people. I know the internet kind of froze up a little bit, so you got to bear with me as that happened a couple of times. But we got through it. Great stuff there. And I'm going too long for Maddie here in Half Coast Studios. Hockey Sense brought to you by First Community. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch just named First Community one of the top workplaces in all of St. Louis. I mean, they're on the list of the top workplaces for 2024, and it's happened for the last 12 years. So they're doing something right. And you know who basically gives you that type of credibility? It's the employees who work there. So trust me, if employees are in a bad situation, and they will let you know. But that's not what happens at First Community. They love the situation they're in. FirstCommunity.com. Check out everything they've got going on. Open up a new account today. Ask about the Little Blues program if you've got a son or daughter that is interested in playing. People have asked me, what are the ages? 4 through 9. So, you know, and it's pretty much for those who have never played any type of organized hockey before. So kind of keep that in mind. Paul's Market. Listen, it's a great grilling day here in St. Louis. It's the only place I'll go to, man. I've got so many hockey players, man, that are getting all their steaks and seafood from Paul's Market, from Craig Berube on down. Jordan Bennington, David Perron, Pavel Buchnevich, Tarasenko, Bernie Federko, Braden Shen. We can go on and on and on. They all get their steaks from Paul's Market. Check them out. Paul's Market, STL.com. Get it delivered no matter where you are, by the way. In the country, they will deliver it to you. A lot of people are getting them delivered, even those that live outside of St. Louis. I mentioned Dirt Cheap Fun Fun. Get all those Four Hands Brewing Company products, including the Cam and Strick Mango Lemonade Hard Seltzer. Look for it now. Four Hands Brewing Company, they're bringing it back in late September. We'll keep you posted on where you can find it here coming up and over the course of the next few weeks as we get into September. Of course, 314 Sports Cards, Devin Sant. Go visit him this weekend, 9640 Olive Boulevard in Olivet. The best selection of hockey cards you'll find anywhere in North America is at 314 Sports Cards. They're open on Sundays. Check out their incredible Instagram account as well and find out when Trent Frederick, Freddie, will be in the house. He'll be visiting. So check that out. He'll be live at 314 Sports Cards. Joseph Woll was just there over the course of the last few weeks as well. So we appreciate everybody for helping us out. Lordo's Diamonds. Go see Mike and Jimmy Lordo, the best in the business. They've been around for almost 70 years. That tells you all you need to know about Mike and Jimmy Lordo. So get that special someone something special in your life. Lordo's Diamonds, baby. Subscribe to our podcast. Do it on YouTube. Do it on the podcast app, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be doing this throughout the entire NHL season and looking forward to it. We go all year round. Again, lordosdiamonds.com, 314-432-8008. That's the phone number. For Maddie, for Aiden, for everybody, Rod Braceful, the director of the National Team Development Program, man, we really appreciate him joining us as well. And hope you guys all have a great weekend. It's a beautiful day today, so get out there and start grilling, have some fun, crack open a Cam and Strick Mango Lemonade, and join us next week. And keep supporting what we're doing here on Hockey Sense and obviously the Cam and Strick podcast as well. I'm Andy Strickland. Have a great weekend, St. Louis.